And Trine Day is probably the only publisher in the country that would publish this book. And I'm just really glad that Trine Day and I finally hooked up with each other.
Well, I hope a lot of people buy the book. It's staggering. And your comment a moment ago that you see these people on television every day is really intriguing for a number of reasons. It's
disheartening. Yeah. And with Trine Day, I mean, we're kind of like David versus Goliath.
Sure.
We're trying to break this. Trine Day is a small publisher, and we're trying to break it into the mainstream media.
Right.
And what we're hoping for is we need a war chest to be able to break it into the mainstream media.
Well, clearly the word has come down from the top to all these people that you touch Nick Bryant's work and you got big problems, and so that the door slams. That's it.
Well, I think I'm an optimist. I mean, which is why I went after Franklin in the first place, and I'm an optimist. And right now at Trine Day, we're hoping that people pre-order the book. It's at thefranklinscandal.com, and you can pre-order the book and get a very good book, and that will help us basically accumulate a war chest so we can break this into the mainstream media. And 50% of the proceeds of this book will go towards children's charities. So not only will you get a good book, but 50% of the money that Trine Day makes off the book will go towards children's charities. So it would be very helpful if your listeners went to thefranklinscandal.com and pre-ordered the book. And the first 1,000 pre-orders will get a signed copy.
Very nice. Deborah Jane Palfrey, the D.C. madam, murdered, obviously, to shut her up. Was that a surprise to you?
I interviewed the D.C. madam before Palfrey. His name was Henry Vincent, and he had never talked to anybody before. He was heavily enmeshed with King and Spence. He supplied hookers to King and Spence, and he'd never talked to anyone. And he talked to me. There's a number of people who I've interviewed who have never ever talked to anyone. And what's interesting about Vincent is 25,000 documents were sealed in his case. And
25,000.
25,000. And I've caught the Department of Justice lying about his case. And then they're sealing. And two people have tried to unseal those documents, and they've been told it'll be a cold day in hell before those documents are ever unsealed. So basically, I've caught the government lying about Vincent. Vincent's been pretty straight with me, and the government refuses to unseal his documents. So Vincent makes some very, very shocking disclosures to me. And until the government is willing to unseal those documents, I'm going to take Vincent's word over the government's.
That makes sense to me. Has it been a surprise that Lawrence King is still alive to you?
I think King was carted off to a psychiatric hospital. And I think that he was made an offer he couldn't refuse in the Vito Corleone sense. He keep his mouth shut and he'll be taken care of. And I think that is what he opted to do.
Well, it sounds like he's a pragmatic fellow. Either that or die.
Well, Spence, his partner, wasn't as pragmatic. He was hooked on coke, and he was kind of a loose cannon. And he is one of the many suicides involved in Franklin.
All right. So what we have done here is really given our listeners a quick overview, a mental synopsis of one of the most amazing looks at utter perversion and decadence and evil.
And government cover-up.
And government cover-up at the highest levels, which suggests to me that the government is evil and absolutely corrupt at the highest levels. I don't know how else to look at it.
Well, like I say in the book, if they're willing to cover up child abuse, the sky's the limit concerning evil.
It's not just child abuse that we're covering up here in this country, of course. There's a lot more to it. But yes, you're right. If they're going to cover this up, there's nothing they won't cover up.
And I'm just hoping that your listeners go to the franklinscandal.com and pre-order the book. And not only will, as I said, not only will they get a good book, but 50% of the proceeds will go to children's charities. All
right. Where does this leave us in 2009? What kind of hope do we have to come up with a moral country once again?
Jeff, you can't really cure a disease until you diagnose it. And this book is going to offer a diagnosis. And at that point, it will be up to hopefully the mothers and the legislators and law enforcement to look into this. But this book does make the diagnosis. I do show that there is a disease, and that's kind of my part in the equation. And it's up to America at that point to do something to check itself into rehab or go under the knife, depending upon which metaphor you want to use, and cure itself.
So someone has picked up the slack, and the D.C. madam's role is being obviously filled by someone else. There's always a demand for this kind of thing, and so it's being proffered somewhere.
Supply and demand.
Yeah, indeed. Thank you, Nick, very much for being here, and congratulations. 7 years is a long haul, and especially wading through such murky, ugly waters as you have.
Thank you.
All right, take care.
Okay, bye.
The book is The Franklin Scandal, and the author is Nick Bryant.